Hey guys, and welcome back to Facing Worlds Part 3. And it's been a long time since we've been to Facing Worlds, since we've been to our little asteroid in the middle of space, in the middle of nowhere. But you may remember last episode, we built the Honeydew Factory. Now, what we're doing this episode is we're building a counter building, a kind of a nemesis for the Honeydew Inc. building. And I think it's probably going to take the shape of the Sipsco Dirt Factory. I've got a few ideas in my head about how we're going to design it. One of the key things is it's got to be functionally symmetrical to the Honeydew Inc. factory. And what I mean is inside it's got to be pretty much the same shape to make sure as a PvP map it's nice and fair. So this is the area we have to build. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. So let's get to the building. Okay, so task 1 was a frame, and the square we started off with at the Honeydew side of things was 25 blocks by 25 blocks. So I repeated that this side by putting down a red brick square, because that's the material we're going to be building the factory out of, red bricks. I came inside and dug down 2 blocks and cleared out the area we're going to need to put down the floor. Filling in the patches left by our shoddy brushwork. And then once the floor was cleared away, I put down a bed of redstone torches. Now these redstone torches are going down because we're copying the way we did the floor at the Honeydew Inc. building, and that means we're putting in, you see here, blue and orange lamps in a checkered format, different colours to the one we used at Honeydew Inc., but still lamps all the same, and we're putting those down on a bed of redstone torches. What this means is we don't have to go underneath and mess around with redstone wire, which is expensive and awkward to use. Instead, we've just got a bed of redstone torches, which are quite cheap. And we're using those to create the power for our lamp checkered floor. Once the floor was done, I came out and built 2 wings, either side of the factory, and remembering that the square itself was 25 squares by 25 squares, I came out by 10 blocks on the side wings to make sure if I wanted any repeating patterns or designs, I'd have less trouble with the symmetry of it. I used cobblestone because what we're going to do with this building, whereas in the Honeydew Inc. building we used stone brick and white marble, what we're using on this building is red brick and cobblestone. Now I know cobblestone is often associated with ugly buildings, but the truth is, if you use cobblestone correctly, it can be quite an attractive material to build with. So that's what we built the entrance out of, cobblestone steps and cobblestone, and we used sapphire blocks there to build up to the height limit on the map. You see, you may remember from the last episode, we talked about the fog becoming blue when you go above a certain height. We're building on the very bottom of the world, almost near to bedrock, if there was any bedrock. And what that means is, the fog is black, but once you go above a certain level, the fog becomes blue. So what the blue sapphires there do are, they reach up, and I stopped building them when the fog turned blue, so we realised how far we can actually build before we started to make the fog blue rather than black and ruin the effect of space for our Let's Build Facing Worlds map. Now you see at the front, I stopped and built a shelf out of red brick, but then built a shelf on the back, higher, out of red brick, and kept this rectangle building, this rectangle shape, on the middle of the building. Now what we're going to have are saw blade triangles, similar to the ones in the Dirt Factory, on the Dirt Factory in the main series. And those are going to be comprised of triangles that dart across the top of our building. Now I remembered that the main square was 25 squares, and then the wings we came out with went 10 blocks each way, which gives us 45. So what I did was I opened up my calculator and worked out what divided by 45, and the answer was, well, either 9 or 5. And building triangles 5 by 5 by 5 was just not going to be big enough. So to get the effect I wanted, I built 9 by 9 by 9 triangles on the top of a building out of red brick. And you see me here filling in those bricks, filling in those shapes with red brick. And then complementing the effect with red brick steps. What this does is it shallows out the lines, makes them a bit shallower, makes the effect more streamlined. Now, with the roof complete, it was time to come around to the front. Now we need a way to broadcast to the world. This is the Sipsco factory. This is where Sips and Co hang out. This is the other base. So I built a large wooden platform, and the idea originally was to write Sipsco in lamps, but unfortunately, once I'd written Sips with the blue lamps, I realized I didn't have enough space to write Co. So what I did was I wrote Co in orange lamps horizontally, then came around the wooden sign, and toyed with ideas about how to border it. I used these orange panel strips, but got halfway and realised I didn't want to do that. Instead I used black panel strips for a more clean, crisp and visible border. And then I used cover panels, orange and blue, to contrast against the colours of the letters that I used. So that would be orange panels behind the blue, and blue panels behind the orange. I separated the two words again with black panel strips. And there we are, a little bit of redstone with a sequencer, and we have our flashing Sipsco sign. There's no mistaking this building for anything other than the Sipsco dirt factory. And there we are, we have the rough shape for our factory, but the devil is in the details, and that's what we need right now, detail. And remembering that we used cobblestone on the front door for the factory, I whipped out some cobblestone bricks, some cobblestone blocks, some cobblestone steps, and some cobblestone half blocks, and began to border the edges of the building. A great way of adding detail to a building, if you're not quite sure what to do and you've just got a one material building, is just to highlight the edges of the building with a different building material. And in this instance we've used cobblestone, come around with a kind of edged lip where the door begins to peak, and then complemented that edge with upside down steps in a kind of crenellated pattern. We've also done the same on the shelf level, which holds the Sipsco sign flashing away there in the background, and added some kind of pseudo crenellations. Then we dug out large window shapes from the red brick, and we bordered those with cobblestone steps, filling in the insides with glass blocks. And there you have it. We went around the back of the building and the sides, and repeated the pattern that we'd used on the front and the left side. That's cobblestone bricks, half bricks, and steps. But one thing I noticed was, if we're going to put chimney stacks on the back of this building, we're going to need a lot more space. So I used the copy and paste utility of World Edit to expand out this building behind, the area behind, and give ourselves more workroom and more floor space for the circular chimney stacks. Now originally you see these circles were too big to fit 3, and that's the number I really wanted, but I decided I'd stick with 2 if that's all I could get. But once I'd started building I realised those circles were too big, so I made smaller circles out of cobblestone, attempted to put a third in the middle, but again I didn't have enough space. So I just pushed the circles away from the sides and began to climb up with cobblestone. I made the circles slightly shallower as we neared the top of the chimneys, and gave a kind of subtle sloped effect by thinning out the cobblestone near the top. And once I had a pattern I was happy with, I repeated that on the second chimney stack. The only thing missing from the chimney stacks was smoke, and the way I got smoke was I used cobwebs. I splashed them around near the top and trailed them away from the peak of the chimneys to give a smoke effect, and you'll see that later when the camera pans around the finished chimneys. Now it was time to hook up the paths that lead up to the Sipsco factory. I used concrete slabs to finish up the pathing. Then I repeated the light effect that we have around honeydewing using redstone torches, white lamps, and glass blocks. And I populated the grass here using bone meal to fill in the empty, flat land with wild grass and flowers. And then to keep things different, I thought, well, Sips is Canadian and they have a lot of pine trees in Canada, so why not use pine trees on this side of the map to give it a different kind of contrast to the regular trees we used outside honeydewing. And I was happy with the effect it left us with. You see there, stones climbing out of the rock and the mud, with oil spilling free, because the Sipsco side of things is a very much a low-tech industrial. If honeydew is high-tech, Sipsco is low-tech. And what else represents Sipsco? Well, big-ass cranes. So what I did was I built a scaffolding platform. I used iron blocks to create a driver's cab, and then used wooden steps to create a crane arm for the crane that you see there. I used wooden steps to create a kind of claw as a hand, and then came around to the paths in front of the factory to repeat what we had on the other side of Facing Worlds. The idea is that this was very much a ruined, desolate area. This is the site of countless battles, and to signify that, there's all kinds of ruins around. So I repeated the cracked stone brick effect for ruins, and then I dug a hole in the ground, filled it with coal, to make it look like our crane arm has been digging the raw materials out of this asteroid. I then finished up with bone meal on the grass, and there you have it. The Sipsco side of things is built. We have our Facing Worlds. The map is almost complete, and you see there the smoke trailing out of the chimney stacks. The Sipsco sign flashing in the night, the honeydew face broadcasting, beaming through space. We're almost ready to play this map. Unfortunately, we need to put in place the systems for how we're going to actually do battle. We're going to have to put the weapons in from Vulcan's weapons mod. We're going to have to put in the nuke system, the wires, which you'll need to capture. There's still a lot to do, and I've got a lot of work ahead of me. So I've been Sjin. Thanks for watching this episode of Let's Build Facing Worlds. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you took away some ideas. Stay tuned, because next time we'll be finishing up the map and perhaps playing it. Hit like and favourite to support the series, and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Take care.